Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your tech and media production questions every day. Cindy Drozda from Erie, Colorado is a reader today. Cindy, what's our first question?
First one is from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. On your MixPre 6.2, have you got one license for noise assist or two? I'm thinking I want noise assist on my boom mic, but then can't decide if I should do it on my wireless mics as well. ENG-style documentary use for reference.
And Jason Bass is going to start us off this morning. Jason?
I personally only have one, and keep in mind, you only need one per mono input, so you can be outputting in stereo, but of course, these are two mono inputs. I don't know. I mean, yeah, if you got the money, go for it, but I've never really needed more than one.
Nigel DeSalle.
Yeah, I mean, you theoretically, I believe, need a license for each channel you're going to use. So if you use two simultaneously, you need two licenses. But what most of us do is have one license and switch it backwards and forwards across the channels as we need it.
Courtney Gooden?
Well, my question is, why are you using noise assist on something that's not live streaming? I'm a purist audio recorder, and I always agree. I always opt not to apply any type of modification to the sound recording, keep it clean, 100% clean into the recorder, because in post-production you have much better tools that are not real time to clean up the noise on your tracks, and you can apply them at will to any number of tracks that you have. And you can listen to it. If it's not good, you can tweak it and go back again. If you have the settings wrong and you're doing you're doing a recording, it bakes that noise assist reduction into the recording itself. So unless you're recording ISOs as well as the noise reduced input, I would not apply it in the field unless you're doing live streaming.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Courtney there. And Mickey said that none. He said have the supervising dialogue editor and re-recording mixer apply noise suppression in post, where they have much more powerful tools to do a lot more, or better yet, record clean dialogue that does not require noise suppression whenever possible. Now, the one thing I will say is that you can, what I've done, and I don't know how many, I think you might need to get both channels, you may need noise assist for if you're trying to get left and right. One thing that you could do is noise suppress something that if you have to do a fast turn for some reason. But if you're doing this if you're gonna take it into post and spend any time with it at all, definitely don't use noise suppression. When we do, Michael Krasny uses my space, and I have noise suppression on for this, but I immediately turn it off when we're doing the actual records. So that Jeff Cohen can do it from his position, not from mine. So I agree that if you're going to do any work at all on it, do it in post. But you could theoretically. The reason it's there is so that you can output it. It's funny because it seems like an odd thing for sound devices to do because they do field recorders, but it's mostly so that directors and other folks in the staff don't complain about the noise. It's really there just to deliver to them in comms so that they're not saying, why is there all this? Why is there all this hiss and everything else when that's going to be eliminated later? And they've done an incredible job at it, and it makes it integral to a lot of live production. But when you're doing raw records, you should definitely want to turn it off.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, Yamaha released DM3 firmware version 3.0 with a built-in auto mixer today. Has anyone tried it yet? With a link.
Alex, know anything about this?
No. So this is today. So they released it today, and the audio day for us is tomorrow. So I would recommend asking that question again. I almost pushed it back to you because tomorrow's really like if you want to add hey, something got released and we're going to do something. And have you seen it? The audio team on the next day is probably the better one to give you the feedback on that. So try that tomorrow and see if we come out any better.
In Mukana chat, Tim McCulloch said Yamaha firmware update for DM3 has additional features besides 8 channels of auto mix, and he's got a link there to the European Yamaha site that I guess has a breakdown of that, so you may want to see if you can find that. Next question.
Next one's from Funsak Dorji. Hi, panelists. What is a good bit rate on OBS for recording an output from an Atem? Thanks.
Alex Lindsay.
It depends. so like that's our favorite answer. It depends on what so if you are pulling from the UVC, so if you're pulling from the webcam output, it probably doesn't make any sense to do any more than 10 megs a second. I don't think it's sending you more than 10 megs a second. I don't know that for sure. But I don't think that there's any quality there after 10 megs a second to grab onto. Now, if you're capturing something from the HDMI output, which is uncompressed, and then you have something else that's going to capture it into a card or something else, then you can think about higher, much higher bandwidths. And it just depends on how you're going to use it. If it matters, you might want to record in ProRes. If it doesn't, you can turn that create a key, like a source record at 20 megs a second or 30 megs a second, that's going to give you a lot more options later. So it just depends on what you want to use it for later and what output you're taking from the Atem.
Next question.
Next one's from the QR code. Goran Kroshel in Slovenia asks, I would like to connect 2 LANC controllers to Sony Z200 camcorder. Can I do it just with 2.5 millimeter Y cable?
Courtney Gooden's going to help you out. Courtney?
Well, you could try it, but probably not, because LANC is a serial protocol like RS-232, maybe RS-422. So it's a bidirectional communications. And so it has to send messages back and forth. And unless that camera is designed to support multiple connections over RS-232, I would say not, because RS-232 uses, data set ready, RTS, CTS handshakes. So I'm not sure that two different devices connected to a single camera would even work if it would acknowledge both of them.
Alex?
I may be wrong here, but I think that this is really just coded audio signals through the LANC. I don't think that there's any handshake. I think that it's just, I think that the LANC is just getting delivered coded. It's, if I remember correctly, LANC is just kind of like, dots and dashes essentially coming through that thing. It's not, there's not much, there's not much handshaking. Aaron Cody says, no, it won't work. But I don't know if there's a lot of handshaking going on with a LANC controller, but I don't know that for sure.
I would always be concerned because if you have 2 on a Y cable and somebody sends a stop and somebody sends a pause at the same time from 2 controllers, there's no real logic in there. So I would think that, plus that splits the signal and lowers the amplitude of the signal. Maybe it might or might not even read it. Courtney, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, since it is bidirectional, so it sends and acknowledges. So, it would be complex unless you had some type of sharing protocol on there. And it may use frequency shift keying as to send it at audio levels, but it is just like a modem, really.
Goran, if you try it out and it works or doesn't work, let us know. But I think you're hearing, I wouldn't depend on it for anything critical. Next question.
A QR code question from Reina Doppelpopulus in Scituate. Nigel said, quote, we were having this discussion about this during the pre-show, but I would like to add 2 things to that, end quote. What were the things before the 2 things were added? What's the info from the rest of people's talk so we can learn from it in the show?
Oh, that's a little complex. Nigel's going to help you out here. Nigel?
I remember somebody saying they never listened to themselves because they knew what they were going to say about half the time. So you're asking me to go back in my memory and remember. I think we were talking about in-ear monitors. And we were having the show in the pre-show when we do our sound checks. I was spilling everywhere, and Jason was helping me get myself in the zone. And I think we were talking. Someone else brought the question up, and we were talking about them. And I don't really remember what the 2 things I was going to add was, but I think one of them was, I wanted to be in the realm of about $400, and I wanted them to be molded. And I have not resolved my challenge yet.
Alex Lindsay.
If you wonder why we don't have more than 5 minutes before the show, then if we had more pre-show, then we would be required to remember even more from what we did in the past. And we're not. It's just you're just out. We're out of spec at this point. So but we'll try not to refer to the pre-show more often so that we don't have to go back and remember it.
Right now, I feel your frustration, though. I remember hearing a story from one of the professors when I was in music school decades ago, and he said that there was a composer who somebody was playing and left a chord unresolved, and after about 15 minutes, he had to wake up, get out of bed, walk downstairs, and play the resolving chord because he couldn't get it out of his head. So I know what it's like to be cut off right before something you want to hear. Anyway, thank you for your question. Let's go on to the next question.
Next one's from Adam Finesilver in Orlando, Florida. Is there a Mac solution that will allow Finder to show thumbnail previews for MTS files in Sequoia? With Quicklook Generators being axed, maybe an extension and links provided.
Jason Beisch, any help for him?
Yeah, this really annoyed me until I remembered about Edit Ready. And Apple Silicon is so fast that you can just completely rip it through, go out, get a cup of coffee. You could even join, disparate files. And you come back and it's so much faster to edit. So that's my advice. It's not an answer, but it will work.
Yeah, MTS files are a little weird. I found them to be, that was a Sony and Panasonic HD camcorder protocol from original, and I'm not sure whether it's survived all the iterations since then. For live quick look previews, may or may not ever come back. That's kind of my feeling about it. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks the panel, does anyone have a production need or use for waterproof TVs? With a link.
Courtney Gooden is going to help you.
Certainly, I have actually seen a number of these on production. This is one that's mounted, in a backyard near a patio, let's say, and it's probably not covered, so it is completely waterproof. We see these in production on a lot of high-end motorhomes that are used for stars. They will have one on the outside of the motorhome. They're also used in food trucks sometimes to put their menus and things up, or to put up just entertainment or a link from the set on the outside of the motorhome, or and it's mounted directly to the side. I think it's kept covered by the awning sometimes, but in inclement weather, it has to be, has to stand up to all the rigors of a sudden thunderstorm. And in California, you need one that's fireproof and not just waterproof.
Nigel?
Yeah, just to add to what Courtney was saying, you really have to think about 3 levels of this. You have to think about outdoor, partial shade, and full sun. And if you look at a television's designed for that environment, each time you go up one of those, you add about $1,000. So the full sun, outdoor, permanent TVs, it's hard to get a good one for less than about $4,000. It's not just water, it's not just sun, it's dust and it's bugs. And you'll find that your regular television has a lot of ventilation in it, and all that has to be sealed up. Now, if you want to go the other way, I would recommend one of these, which is the CC television. The 200-inch version, I believe, is about, I think they start at about $1 million.
Yes.
And this would eliminate the problem you have with all sunlight, water, and dust.
I'm going to put that in my pool this summer.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Buy a 6-pack. For those of you who know that we run on questions, if you want to get your questions in, Mukana is the place for you. Go to officehours.global/join. That'll put you on the pathway to becoming essentially a part of the inner group that gets emails about what's happening with Office Hours every day, but it also gets you into the Mukana system for Q&A that we use every day here on the show, and there's a live discussion that goes on. It helps people chat a little more, get a little more detail. As I've already noted, there's sometimes links and valuable information there. So if you want to get into that, go to officehours.global/join. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Since it's graphics day on Office Hours, can we talk about the new video editing app called Edits, which competes with Capcom? Mosseri revealed it on Instagram yesterday, which wasn't a slow news day, so you might have missed it. Link provided.
Alex, what do you think? Have you seen it?
Yeah, this was actually, I think it was announced over the weekend, actually. And this is kind of a view of the order page because it's not available yet. This is Edit's an Instagram app. So it's kind of a little bit of out of the frying pan into the fire as far as, which edit tool you're using. I don't think it's Capcom. I think it's CapCut that's the ByteDance version of this app. And of course, I think that Meta is doing what it's done in the past, which is something else is working, and let's do the same thing. I think they were trying to be opportunistic, thinking that the TikTok ban was going to last longer than 12 hours, because it turned out, I think they thought that the TikTok ban was going to be 12 hours, but really it was just a show. Like, it wasn't a ban. It was just a show so that TikTok could knife Congress and hand flowers to Trump. so that's all that was. So there was no real ban. And I think that Meta thought that there was going to be a ban. And they were going to have an opportunity to cut into CapCut right now. And so this isn't even open. It said that they're going to release it in March 13th. That, to me, that means that they probably barely had it working when someone decided we should announce it. I don't even know. They may not have had any app. Someone might have just said, we need an app. Let's do something about this. Probably as it got closer. So I think that you could put together an app that was a little rocky, but would do most of the features in 6 months, for this. So it could have all happened in the last little bit of time just to take advantage of the thing. I don't know. We'll see. I do think that CapCut is the problem. Really, is just privacy with CapCut. So I have it on one of my phones, but my phone doesn't have anything else on it. Like, I don't have my any of my stuff on it, any information on it, because I'm so, like, CapCut bothers me so much. But I will say it's the best editing app on the phone. Like, it is the amount of features and tools and everything else that it has. It is by far the best one out there. It allows you to do so many fun things for social media. So I think that it'll be interesting to see what Instagram comes up with.
Had a couple of messages yesterday from friends of mine who play with it and said that CapCut wasn't back up after TikTok came back up. Now, I'm not saying that's still true. They probably got them all back up and running, but just check out.
Yeah, there's probably some logistics of getting it back into the app stores that's different than the logistics of getting it, just turning the servers back on. Yeah,
I think it was something like that. And anyway, so just if you have, I know a lot of people were upset because they're making money off of some of this stuff and it disappeared for a while.
I will say that I think that the creators were very upset. Yeah. I didn't talk to any users that cared. I thought that was a really fascinating, I was talking to my kids thinking that they would, it's not their friends. My kids have no social media, but talking to their friends about it, their friends were like, we'll just find something else. And I think that that's a really fascinating thing. I don't think that TikTok could have afforded to be off for more than a couple weeks. I think it would have devastated their market forever. It would have crippled that company. If they had been out for a month or 2 months while they tried to figure this out, that company would have never recovered, because I think that the kids and everybody else would have just found something else. The people who were upset were the creators who were making money on the platform. But I think it's a very frightening thing. It should be a very frightening thing for TikTok if they actually do the research that so many users just didn't care that they were going to go under. They were like, I'll just go find something else.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. And if it's the creators, though, then it does bring up, are you going to depend upon any sort of ephemeral service for your income stream that can be cut off by a company? That's a little scarier to me today than it was before.
Yeah, and I think that there is a moment. I remember talking when I first started doing production with Pixel Core. We would have one big client that suddenly, we would kind of jump from one big client to another until we started to diversify. And even then it wasn't enough. But I was talking to a friend of mine that had been through a startup, and he said, you're always going to have that big client that's going to make all the money at first. The key is when you get up to that point where you have some infrastructure, start spreading out so that big client. So the mistake that you make is trying to have too many clients at one time. That you can't do that when you're little. So when you get started, working just in TikTok or just in Meta or whatever it is makes sense. But as soon as you get there, you need to start spreading out. I think that the only blue chip, and I don't even consider them social media, is really YouTube. That's kind of the blue chip stock of if you get a following there, because I don't think YouTube's going anywhere. And they also move much slower than everybody else, and they don't really have, they're adding more social features, but they don't have nearly as many now. Atem Silver said Red Note was showing #1 in social media on the App Store, which is interesting. What I've read from Chinese experts is that Yeah, that's not Red Note. They started calling it Red Note, but it's really Little Red Book is what the Chinese term is. Little Red Book. And you can do the research on what that means, but it's not Red Note. So.
Jason Bache.
Yeah, I've got to reiterate that. I mean, I remember when YouTube, introduced YouTube Red, and everyone was losing their mind. And this is just another case of if your livelihood is based upon somebody else's platform, diversify. Get what you need and then diversify.
Next question.
Stephen Montagna in Madison, Wisconsin. Follow up on Google Veo2. One video maker's early efforts. Thoughts?
Courtney Goodland took a look for us. Courtney?
Yes, I did look at this, and it is quite scary because if you look at it, I don't know if we can show. I don't. Should we be able to show any of this, Alex?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. It's fine.
Okay. So he's made this Ersatz Porsche commercial, which you're seeing now, using Veo2. And everything here is generated using Veo2. No live action was shot. And it's a funny commercial. It's voiceover. You'll notice that if you played it with the audio, and I won't do that, I don't think there's any sync dialogue. It's all voiceover. And then he also does, at the end, he does a behind the scenes of the filming of the commercial, which is also all generated by Veo2. And it's quite funny about this guy who raises llamas and becomes a Porsche dealer in Italy. And it's quite amazing. If we get down here to behind the scenes, all these shots supposedly shot behind the scenes, when they were making it. Even the cameras look very realistic. None of this is real. There's only one real shot in this whole in some of the behind the scenes thing is where there's a guy talking to camera on-screen dialogue, and it's the only real shot there. It says the article, if you read the article, chasing the cases down the hill, a guy with a little Osmo pocket, and all the film equipment looks amazingly real. Of course, they're very quick cuts, and you don't have a chance to examine them very closely. It's probably difficult. He said it's fairly difficult to create long scenes with consistency that you can't pick out something that is, slightly out of character, doesn't look quite right. He spent about 3 weeks creating the commercial itself, fiddling around with Veo2, and another, I think, 2 weeks on creating the behind the scenes footage. But take a look at it, and you'll see why Hollywood is very afraid. Once they handle conquer the consistency from scene to scene and shot to shot of the actors and characters created, then you're gonna, and I think that's not too far off, and have the ability to do sync sound, syncing the picture to pre-recorded soundtrack, or generating a pre-recorded soundtrack and generating picture to match it. I think Hollywood will be very, very afraid.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I think that Hollywood should be afraid for a lot of reasons, for a lot of things. I think that they're in a sinking ship. So I just want to say that right. But I don't know if AI, so you can make a lot of things that look cool, but can build them into a story that is consistent over more than a couple minutes? And I'm not clear that that'll happen for a while. And the reason I say that, we were, when we were working on Star Wars, they were trying to figure out who was going to be Obi-Wan. And I remember I mentioned, it'd be really fun to have, and I can't think of the actor's name right now, but he was in Highlander. He played Highlander in the TV show, and I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. And immediately the casting director said, "Oh, that's a TV actor," and it was like, that was not like between a TV and a film actor. That was a TV actor, and wouldn't hold up on a big screen. And it was really fascinating to see that. And I started looking at the difference between TV actors and film actors and so on and so forth. But we're talking about people who are all pretty talented, that are able to do things over a long period of time, and, spent years with their craft, and still, weren't able to get over that hump of whatever that magic was that person has. And if you look at how many pieces of content are out there, and how many people just aren't, like, you watch it and you're not compelled by that actor. And these people are spending big money on it, and you're just like, I'm not compelled. that's an enormous amount of skill and time and process even to get to that point. And I think that Adrian Paul, by the way, is Adam Fine Silver Point. Adrian Paul is who I suggested because I was a big fan of Highlander, the TV show. So anyway, so the at the time, and so anyway, but it was interesting. I think that the problem, again, I'm going to keep on coming back to is there's a magic that people have that I don't think AI is going to get to. Building something like this, you can build lots of tests, but I think it oftentimes can paper over the fact that could you actually have dialogue by something that people feel like they're connected to it. And I'm not clear that that's going to happen anytime soon. So I think the biggest problem for Hollywood is that using all these AI tools, people can build lots and lots of content that entertain themselves. Like that's the biggest challenge to Hollywood is YouTube, is because YouTube is this massive generation of verticals that are minor and people just watching things because they're funny. And they only have to be a minute or two, and AI is incredible at that. But I think that's going to be, I think replacing actors and the whole thing, and now coming up with concepts, we were talking about it last night on Extra Hours. There was a writer, the writer for Taxi Driver and other things was like, I just put in all these things to come up with stories about that are made by me, and Scorsese and everyone else. And he said they came up with great ideas. Now, could they flesh them out into a dialogue, and could they? And I think that AI can help with those things, but I don't think AI is going to do it anytime soon in the way that I think a lot of people talk about it. I could be wrong. I could be eating a lot of crow here in 5 years, but I look at it and I just don't know if it's going to get as deep as people think it's going to get in a place that really competes with what we're used to watching nowadays on Apple TV Plus or Disney or Prime or whatever. I think there's something there that it's going to be hard to get traction. But I do think that small bits of 2-minute videos that are funny is a real danger to Hollywood. like that's a clear and present danger because it takes up time. Like I can sit and watch, like generally, unless my family sits down, I will sit and just watch YouTube. Like I just bounce around and watch things, and I don't even watch the whole video. Like I just watch little bits and skip through it, and then go to something else. And I can spend hours doing that if I allow myself to.
Courtney, you wanted to get back in on this?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Alex. The subtlety of acting, is the thing that is going to be hard to conquer. That a little bit of an uncanny valley. I mean, they've conquered the uncanny valley of look, but now the subtlety of feeling is something to come over. And this is the one thing that this little commercial shows you is, they can capture, the look of these old Italian ladies sitting on the street, even the production equipment here, the lighting on them, that soft Italian light. It's got everything there. It's completely believable. Of course, we don't hear any sound or acting from them. And so for voiceover commercials, I think that's the first place we're going to see all of this AI operated in.
If pharmaceutical ads aren't made illegal in the next 4 years, this is going to be a boom.
Should have been anyway, but sure.
But this is going to be a boom for to your point, boom for pharmaceutical ads.
And there's a lot of discussion, as you can imagine, in the voiceover community that I'm a part of about this and what's happening. And it was interesting. Somebody sent me a clip from Alan Rickman, the actor who famously fell off Nakatomi Tower in the original Die Hard, and a fine actor, Professor Snape and everything else. He said, it's a human need to be told stories. The more we need to tell stories to each other about who we are, why we are, where we come from, and what might be possible. And until AI encroaches heavily on that ability for human connection, I'm going to think that it has its place, but I'm not sure the heavy lifting of that. It's so ingrained into our reptile brains as to, passing along information through culture that way that it better get all those little details right, or people are going to go, it's not quite right.
I will say that I'm less sure that voiceover is as safe as what I was talking about before. Because I can tell you, as someone who listens to books all the time, that's all I do is I don't read books. If someone recommends a book and I can't find the audiobook, I'm like, well, I can't read it. But I listen to lots of books, and I strongly prefer, and I mostly listen to nonfiction books, so it's mostly information. In that environment, I strongly prefer AI voices because I can listen to them faster. for whatever reason, the clarity of the AI voice that 11 Labs is building for like reading magazine articles, I vastly prefer over the humans, because their idiosyncrasies in their voice make it harder for me to listen at 2x. And so I think that there's a for information, and there's so much out there that wants to be, in my opinion, wants to be in audio. Now, to your point, I think that when you're talking about fictional stuff and putting those together, I think that there's a huge opportunity. I mean, I think that there's still a place for humans at the highest level. But I will say, if you take a small fictional book that's an edge case, being able to, we're going to get to a point where you hand that book to an AI tool, and we're almost there now. I mean, I've seen some of the tests. You hand a book to the AI tools, and they create everything. Like, it is like, I heard a test, and I don't know if I could post it, but it took a chapter, and it's the sound effects, it's the ambient sound, it's all the different voices, it split it all up, built all the pieces, and put it all back together. And the thing is I don't think that, and it was like immersive, like it's an immersive experience, and I couldn't tell, like I couldn't, and I think that's a more dangerous thing of it being able to create this kind of this process. I don't think it replaces actors at the high end, but what I'm concerned about is that it replaces, the bottom 90%, or 95% of voice actors, because when you don't have the money, that chapter would have cost tens of thousands of dollars, let alone the whole book, to do it at that level. And that's the thing that I think is more concerning. Is I do think voice actors are in more trouble than the screen, right now. And I think that is something that we have to figure out, because, how do you go back if once you cut off the supply?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. There's going to be a lot of pressure there. It just, for me, what I find interesting is that not when I'm listening to information, which I 100% agree with you. Artificial voices passing out, reading the instructions, doing anything that is just get it clearly, information across the barrier, not a problem. But interestingly enough, when I'm walking, I usually listen just a little bit faster than normal to the novels and things that I'm trying to learn how to do better. And I usually listen to them on 1.2. I can't tell you, maybe a dozen times in every book that I read, if it's a good book, and I try to find nothing but good books, I find myself slowing back down to 0, because I just want to listen to the rhythm of the prose coming out of that really good performer and get back to the song as opposed to the words.
I definitely say that I find when I'm watching YouTube videos that are instructional, I do find that I slow down a little bit. I'm at 1x for a lot more than I thought I would be. I have to admit, though, like reading magazine articles and books, if I take someone from 2x to back down to 1x, I can't listen to it anymore. Like I'm like, I don't even know what that voice is. Like I couldn't do that again.
Well,
so
the two aren't mutually exclusive, right? I mean,
Right.
Alex is using
modes.
it for a completely different thing than Bill is.
Right.
So, it makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, and for me, do I put a sigh in here? It's not in the script, but is that what the character is doing? And if I'm just going to be efficient, I don't want anything like that in there. Mm-hmm. And you can argue that maybe the audience in a listening environment needs to put in the sigh, but for me, it becomes an integral part of the character you're trying to get across. So I want that emotional cue in there. Who knows? There's a lot to talk about, and this will not be solved today. Fascinating discussion. Thank you for asking the question, Stephen. Next question.
Punsak Dorji is asking, can anyone recommend a rainproof cover for a Sony PXW Z200, Z280, and Z90 VS? Cheap ones like the use and throw rain covers. Thanks.
Alex.
So when it comes to inexpensive, Mickey suggests clear XL garbage bags and gaff tape. So that is the least expensive way for you to do it. And a lot of us have done that in a pinch to put that together. If you're looking for something a little bit more permanent, one thing the two companies that I've used in the past are Orca and Portabrace. So this is what the Orca one looks like. So you have kind of and this is about, I don't know what's inexpensive. I think this is about $125, $150. Here is the Portabrace version of these, and I think this is for the Z200. But these are kind of designed to go over those there. So those are probably a little bit more permanent. Both of them are you can get them up to $400 or $500 if you add a bunch of things. But in general, the starting is about $125, $150 a camera. But again, a lot of us have done it as just garbage bags, and gaff tape has been the thing that we've used often.
Yeah, I've done that myself. If you want to take a step up, you might do just waterproof rain cover on Amazon and or things like Marker Tech, and see, Marker Tech will be a step above. That'll be probably a fixed glass plate and a ring with a basically transparent bag for your camera in different sizes depending on how big your camera is. So there'll be a lot of less expensive solutions there. But I agree with Alex. Most of the time when I've had to do it, I've just torn a little hole in a piece of sheet plastic and gaff taped it to the camera. Next question.
Next one's from Tony Mobley in Noonan. Currently using a spring-loaded holder for my iPhone in the back of my teleprompter. Any suggestions for replacement? This is not working with new generation of iPhone. Too many buttons.
Jason Beish.
Okay, I am assuming that you are using the iPhone as the camera and not as the screen. And along those lines, yes, that gets extremely annoying. And my Osmo is really upset that I ended up with an iPhone 16. I think the way to do this would be, get an oversized cage, get something like this, and then add a magic arm to it. The combination of those two should allow you to put the phone just about anywhere and meander around whatever you need. The alternative is, get a form-fitting cage. Just understand that you'll have to replace that when you replace the phone.
Yeah, and I've got 2 or 3 different ones I use with my iPhone. One of them is a clamp that has just the 4 corners of the phone. It's got little L brackets on the 4 corners. It actually has an expansion area. So you can find different iPhone holders that are relatively stable. And I just put in a phone holder for tripod and got a whole bunch of them. Some of them do put pressure vertically or horizontally, and I agree with you 100%, Tony. That will impede your button accessibility and may even push them, and they're really bad solutions. But there's so many options out there. There's so many of these clamp holders for iPhones that if you look around enough, you'll find something. Alex?
Yeah, Hosmo got me hooked on Peak Designs. So if you look at these here, oops, that's the wrong one. I'm in the wrong screen. Let me pull this up here. So these Peak Designs. So basically, this is the case. This is what my phone is in right now. Thank you, Hosmo. But what this does is then gives you a bunch of mounts, and one of these mounts is a quarter 20. I'll try to scroll down, but you see, once you get into the system, there's lots of mounts that are available to you. And I know one's a quarter 20 because I have it, but then you just attach that mount to, I have one in my car that it snaps to it. And this can you can see that they either lock in or they snap to it, but then you're not clamping onto anything. And so you may find that that's if you like the case as a general case, you just leave it on. I have mine has, this piece here, and this will lock into the quarter 20 mount, which I have somewhere in my office. I put my wallet on the back of it because I lose my phone and I lose my wallet, but I rarely lose both of them, so I keep them together. But if I need to pull it off, I can pull it off. And so it's a great. I've had those for the last, again, Hosmo's got me hooked on them, and I've had it for the last 3 or 4 phones.
Courtney Gooden.
If you're talking about putting your phone just in the back of a teleprompter, you can use something like, there's a lot of these new ones, especially with the new iPhones, is the MagSafe holder for it. This is a car mount that just uses the magnet, the MagSafe. So it just attaches to the back and it'll hold your phone steady. And if it's designed for a car mount, it can even stand some bumps and so on. But I imagine you could either attach this base to a base plate in the back of your teleprompter or the side, since it's non-directional. It's a circle there. You can orient the camera in any direction you want, and then position it on that little arm to be in the right position without offending any of the buttons. And since you're not going to be handling it, it's going to be protected in the back of the prompter. That should work fine for you, and they're only about $14.
Nigel.
Yeah, I might be going the wrong way, but I'm playing with the Elgato Prompter. Been using it for a couple of weeks, and I'm really impressed with this. And it comes with all sorts of fittings, and one of them would allow you to put an iPhone in the back of it. And so, we're going to see continuous change in the iPhone in shapes and sizes. And if you keep an iPhone for 3 or 4 years, then you can probably keep a prompter for the same time. But if the budget will stretch, look at the way an Elgato prompter works with an iPhone. And then at some point, if you choose to go to a camera or choose to use even a InstaLink 360, all of that stuff will work in that environment. It's actually pretty flexible.
Alex, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, and just following up, this is the tripod mount that you can see here. So this has got a quarter 20 on the bottom, and you simply attach it to whatever you were going to attach a tripod to. But there's lots of other clamps and opportunities there.
Next question.
Paul Kovacs in Elkhart, Indiana asks, trying to find some more or less 25-minute educational short movies for our small planetarium for elementary kids. Searched internet and found some from planetariums. Any other sources I can look for that's inexpensive?
Jason Bache, do you have a thought?
I can suggest an age-old one that may or may not still be in copyright. The Powers of 10 is a really, really old thing, but I think it would work beautifully in a planetarium, and it can't cost that much.
Oh, man, yeah. In fact, there was another version of that called Cosmic Zoom that was one of my eye-opening short films, National Film Board of Canada. So search for Powers of 10 or Cosmic Zoom. They're brilliant for somebody starting out in astronomy. Alex.
So, Paul, I guess the question that I have that maybe you can post into the chat if you're in the chat is how big is your planetarium? When can I come visit? So anyway, so the real question here is what do you need it to be a hemisphere? So for a planetarium, oftentimes you're shooting with a 180-degree lens, not a stereo 180-degree lens, but just a 180-degree lens, which by the way I have, Paul. So anyway, if you want me to shoot some stuff for you, and then you can put it up on a planetarium, I can supply you things. But I don't know if they're educational short videos, but it'd be really fascinating to play with someone with a real planetarium. You said a small planetarium, but I don't know what that means. I mean, so we've shot stuff. Paul, tell me how big it is. What's the diameter of the planetarium? So the ones that we've shot in the past, we did I was brought in to do a wedding in VR. So this is, I don't know, almost 10 years ago. And so we shot, he says we have a mirror warp system, which I don't know what that means. But what we did is we had I guess the question for Paul is, can you take a 180-degree video? Is it a 180-degree video that you're trying to find, that has that field of view? But we had a 16-foot blow-up little dome. And we took some of the videos and stills that we were doing, and okay, so it's Star Lab. It's a blow-up size. So so we did a blow-up one. And I'll see if I can pull up Star Lab, because probably it probably is similar to the one that we had here. But it was yours is probably bigger than the one that we were using. This is so, and I a lot of you probably don't know that these even exist, but they're these are you have it's basically a blow up. And Nick Jushishin has one at Drexel. That's the one we used. And so you can have these little, you can see here, and I got to tell you, if it is so cool. Now this is exactly the way we had it here. So we were able to kind of, and again, Drexel has one of these, and Nick's is the one we tested it with, and it has this 180-degree lens on the top. It sounds like Paul might have a different, 17. So it's about the same size as the one that we used. We put up that little globe. We shot a bunch of videos, and we told people about it. We figured one or two people would walk by. It was a 45-minute line. Like, everybody wanted to see the 360 stuff. We put little cushions in there, and they could sit back and watch it. They're incredible values. And so I don't know where, but the person to try to reach out to, Paul, is to, in Discord, see if you can get a hold of Nick Jushishin, because they have the same type that you have, and I know that they've been building stuff. Oh, so he said our projector is off to the side, not in the center. So we have to find out more about what you're doing there, but I think that he may know more about that. Also, there's a big hemisphere, if you're trying to go somewhere to find out more about it, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Jason's in October, there is a sphere, it's called a Sphere Fest or something like that. It's like or Dome Fest. And it's all everybody who makes dome videos goes to there and shows off their videos. It's like a film festival for domes. And it happened to go along. I was speaking in Albuquerque one year at the end of October, because they all pack all their conferences right near when they do the balloons. So whenever the hot air balloon thing happens in Albuquerque is when I think this thing happens.
Early October.
Yeah, early October, not late October. And so take a look and see if you can find that. But you might be able to have better resources there to meet people. It might be worth a trip just to meet people and talk to them about it.
Jason, you want to come back in?
Yeah, this is a bit of a non sequitur. This is the original 8mm Sigma, Alex. That
I have a couple of those. Yep.
So, would this work to actually? Now you've piqued my curiosity to shoot something that because it's perfectly spherical. What it shoots looks like a bottle cap, and it's not a fisheye. It's actually a sphere.
Yeah,
so would that work?
No, it's a sphere. That's a 180-degree lens. If you shoot it onto a full frame sensor, so you need a full frame sensor.
Well,
and
yeah,
you should
of
be able
course.
to shoot video. So if you put that on a full frame, if it's on a full frame sensor, that should put a ball in the center, and you should be able to build a video that you would watch out of that.
Yeah,
now,
that's exactly what I've done. I was just curious if that would
think
work
that
for
it's straight
planetarium.
on, but typically you turn it up like this, so the 180 degrees is going down like that. So
The nodal ninja thing for the axes. Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Well, hopefully that helped, Paul. Next question.
Next one's from Aaron Cody in St. Louis, Missouri. Is there a way to test whether power over internet is working if I don't have access to the switch and don't have a spare PoE device?
Power over Ethernet. Jason Beish.
Okay, there are lots of kinds of power over Ethernet. So passive 48 volts, sure, I suppose you could use a voltmeter if you could isolate the pins. A bit of a safer way to do it would be this little tester. It's $102, and it will do PoE+, PoE++, the ones that actually require a little bit of communication and, just straight away, and it won't even interrupt the data stream. Easy way for 48 volt and the more conventional simple stuff would be this guy from Klein Tools, which I adore.
Next question.
Adam Finesilver in Orlando, Florida asks, the ZVE-10-2 shows that it can live stream 4K 30 video over USB-C. Is it still preferable to use the HDMI out port?
Alex, what do you think?
It's pretty compressed when it comes out of there. And the question is, if you're only going straight in, like I have HDMI coming out of my FX30, and it could do 4K, I believe, out of the USB, but it would be compressed. And number two is it wouldn't go to my switcher. So I can't switch between things and draw over it, switch back and forth. If you're only doing it as a webcam directly into your camera, it might be advantageous. The question is, what are you using it for? If you're sending 4K 30 into Zoom or into something else, it's not going to use it. So it could possibly be valuable if you're actually doing a 4K production, but remember that you're giving up all the other things that come with HDMI.
Next question.
Next one's from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. NAB has published recommendation for transitioning to ATSC 3.0. Are there applications to live streaming? With a link.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, yes. Next Gen TVs, which is what it's now called, ATSC 3 is called Next Gen TV. There is, it could help you with a live streaming event because it allows two-way communication. So it has a broadcast component that's broadcast over the air, and then it has a return component that comes in from the internet. So that you can send things over the internet connection and integrate them into the broadcast connection, like personalized commercials targeted for a specific audience based on their internet activity, things like that. So it could have applications where an audience that's out there watching could vote on on these all the Dancing with the Stars and all of these talent show productions are out there without having to pick up their phone and call in and vote. So there's those kinds of applications. There's a big brouhaha right now about DRM in ATSC3 because it does permit the broadcasters to DRM protect their broadcast signals. Whereas in the past, if you just have a receiver that can receive the signal, no problem. Nowadays, it's up to the channel whether or not they want to apply a DRM signal to their signal, which means that you would have to license the ability to watch that channel separately. And that's causing a lot of consternation in the transition to ATSC3, and it's causing a lot of equipment manufacturers, television manufacturers to avoid it because that hasn't been worked out completely yet. And people are avoiding using those ATSC or next-gen receivers because of DRM. You don't know what channels you'll be able to receive on that over-the-air receiver, even if you're not using the two-way portion of ATSC or next-gen television.
Alex?
They seem optimistic. like that there's going to be this standard's ever going to get used. I mean, I think that we're now in the twilight age of television distribution, and I don't know. The problem with any of these standards is that you end up with a situation where there's so many upgrades that are required that people are going to propose a transition, and that transition is going to take 10 years, and that would assume that, I mean, at least because people are buying televisions and people are building in hardware and they have to go buy it, and they're, so there's like lots of things that have to happen, and so I guess you got to keep on building the standards and being optimistic about it. But the chances of us really watching TV the way we used to watch it, it's kind of like, let's build a new telephone standard. Like I haven't had a terrestrial based telephone for 2 decades, and I don't think that, and so I think that's what you're kind of building right now. What they're building right now is something that isn't going to exist by the time it actually would become a standard.
Courtney, real quick.
And I might point out to Alex, the one thing he hates and he always says on the show is never connect your television to the internet.
Yeah.
Because it is watching you. And of course, to use Next Gen successfully, the DRM keys are set over the internet.
Yeah.
So, it's going to force you to connect your television to the internet.
Yeah, I just don't think that there's, I mean, maybe people are doing it. I talk to people all the time that do the crazy thing, which is to connect their television to the internet. But I think that it's beyond that. I just think that there's so much streaming and so many other things. I just don't know if it's really going to be valid. I mean, in 10 years.
For those of you who like what you see here every day, Office Hours is a 501c3. And so if you'd like to make a donation to help us continue doing the work that we do, go to officehours.global/donate. We would appreciate you helping us do our volunteer work of getting all this information out every day. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks the panel, has anyone used Sora in production yet?
Alex, any experiments?
I'm sure somebody is, but nobody that I know is using it in production. I mean, everyone's playing with it, and everyone's like, oh, this is really cool, but I haven't seen anybody do production.
Yeah, mostly production is executing a plan, and the problem that I see so far is that these things are amazing, but controlling them can be a bit of an issue, although we're seeing more and more people succeed in controlling these generative sources, so it may be on the way faster than we all think. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Any thoughts on NAB adding a sports summit to the convention this year? And there's a link provided.
Alex, what do you think?
Of all of our sourness about TV, the one glowing white hot ember is sports. That's the one place that everybody's making money. So of course they're going to pay a lot more attention. They're going to keep on paying more attention to it because it's the one thing that, I mean, there are 3 things that we've said for the last decade or 15 years that is why you do live and why it is what creates must-see TV. And one is breaking news. Another one is sports. Another one is interactivity. Breaking news is hard to control. You don't know when it's going to be breaking. Interactivity, nobody understands. So they don't do very much of it. And then sports is the one predictable thing that gives you a reason to be there at that time. And even then, I think now a lot of us time shift little bits and pieces of it, but it's still something that has a very short shelf life. Like a football game is really valuable for, the time it started to about an hour or 2 after, and then it's worthless. And so that's an incredible value to the advertisers. And so I'm surprised that they didn't have a sports summit already. I'm sure that they'll get more intense about it.
Next question.
Here's one from Roz Humphreys in Comox, BC. Anybody know of a MagSafe handle for an iPhone? Polarpro worked, but I want to switch lenses with Moment Lens, not a rig per se. Thanks.
Jason Bache, any thoughts?
All right, I'll take a stab at this. This probably won't work, but Peak Design does have a tripod. That tripod can be straightened out for a handle. Don't know if that'll help.
Yeah, I'm not, MagSafe is pretty secure, but handheld, I would be a little bit leery of entirely relying on a MagSafe to secure my phone. Now, maybe that's the way I shoot. I tend to use my phone in a small rig cage on a monopod for almost all my shooting these days. And I'm not sure whether MagSafe, the way I kind of put it up high and swing it down low and things like that, I would not want my phone to detach and go flinging off somewhere. But that's just me. Alex, your thoughts?
Insta360 Pro 2 has a MagSafe connector. So
there you go.
it comes with a gimbal and everything else for $150, but it's got a snap-on, and they advertise that quite a bit.
There you go. Must work. Next question.
Next one's from Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. Yesterday, the U.S. presidential inauguration audio crew had issues with a backing track for Carrie Underwood. What does Office Hours team suspect happened, and how would you have prevented this?
Nigel, what do you think?
I'll let Alex talk about what technically happened if he knows with the playback, although Carrie Underwood did a pretty good job with no backing, so congratulate that. I thought one of the things I observed was, I don't know whether the cast of this production didn't want to rehearse or the rehearsals didn't work, but there were a number of points that the thing just wasn't flowing. And so one of the lessons always is have a good stage manager managing it and have rehearsals.
Alex?
So change of venue at the last minute is a disaster. Like something of this size and of this magnitude, changing venues. If you ask me, what should we do with the inauguration? I would say always do it inside. Like from now on, like I would do it always inside and from now on, not because it's better or worse or whatever, but because I could predict it. I could predict what was going to happen all the time. I hate doing outside shows because of things like this. Is that suddenly it rains or it's going to be cold or whatever, and now you have to go inside and now you have to change everything that you were going to do. They had to rearrange everything. The reason that I don't think they got any rehearsals in defense of that crew, the reason I don't think they had any rehearsals is because they spent the whole time moving the entire infrastructure from one place to another. And so they probably had it done the night before, and they probably got a little bit of Q to Q in, but probably very little. They probably didn't go through all the testing that they would have had. They spent months building the outdoor version of this. So they started, I think, in December or November or something like that, building out this whole thing. And then they had to change it in a couple days. That was nuts. So now it was cold, and we have lost a president to it being too cold, and then they got sick, and then a month later they were dead. It was the 19th century, but it was still like it's not like it never happened. so that's why you bring it in. And in my opinion, it looked great on TV. Just keep doing it where they're doing it now. Like in 4 years, if they're smart, they'll never do it outside again. Like that was the lesson. And hopefully they took that lesson, is that doing things outside is nuts. And I've done enough outside to say that it's just nuts. And almost all of them are white knuckle rides because of the weather. And so anyway, I think that it's worth watching as a production person. We did go through this in extra hours last night in detail. So we actually played the silence, which was like 1 minute and 50 seconds, and gave our view of what was happening in the back end. Like we gave you like I was talking over like what was happening over the back end. I feel like when we did that, I got off of it. I said if we had more time, we would simulate comms and build a YouTube clip that is just like what actually, if this is probably what happened in the comms in the background. But it just, I think it had to do with the fast turn. And I thought she did great. The mistake was trying too long. Like that would be the only thing I would say is the only mistake. And it takes a lot of people to approve something. But, she finally, if you look at it, there's a cell phone shot from the other angle because they hid her talking to them in the broadcast. But someone took a cell phone shot and you can see her look over and she just goes, I can sing. Can I just sing it? Like, I can just sing it. Like, she just told them like, hey, let me go. And I will say that was the highlight of that whole day. like her singing it with the audience singing with her was the best thing that happened on that day. So after all of that, and you can never get permission to say, I'm going to sing a cappella and I'm going to get the entire rotunda to sing with me. No one would ever approve that in a run of show. But it was definitely the best part of what happened.
Yeah, she made that happen. It was fabulous. Courtney.
Yeah, and I saw Alex's and Grant's imitation of the comms backstage on extra hours last night, and it was hilarious. I think one of the I love the part where you're doing, I thought I sent you that file. What do you mean? It's not in that folder. Is it on?
Is it on Frame? No, it's on Dropbox. I can't get the Dropbox. I didn't know it was.
I've opened the folder in Dropbox.
No, it's just Google Drive.
Yeah, that was hilarious. And also I saw on the late night comedians, if you watched any of their monologues, they all referred to this mess up and they ad-libbed their only, their ways of handling that situation. I think the fact that the venue was changed, also managing that many super rich people who almost never arrive on time to come in to have a separate entrance, arrive on time, and be seated. That took an immense long time between people, and that all has to do with backstage coordination with stage managers. And apparently they had the holding area way too far away from the rotunda, so that they had to walk, half a block to get there from the holding area, and staging them in a whole, wasn't done correctly, and it took too long between people to introduce them. So I think all in all, it took about 4 times longer than it should have if it had been competently arranged in the venue that they originally had it scheduled for.
Also, you just have to control those things. I heard a story about the Billy Ray Cyrus performance. I guess he was on for a long time. The lighting was terrible on him. He was in the dark half the time and just wandering around the stage. So it is very difficult to do live well. And if nothing else, someone has to be directing everything and keeping it on schedule. Or every live event, without that controlling party who has the authority to kind of crack the whip a little bit, they just go wrong. That's been my experience. Thank you for watching today. We appreciate it. We are here every single day, and it is made possible by a group of people in the background. Those of you who are watching the show, our constituents that we do this show for, our producers, you are why we are here. And you drive the show with your questions that you ask through the course of every day. So we appreciate tremendously the time and effort you put into helping make this show possible. For the people on the panel that show up every day to do this work and answer questions, they're all volunteers and they do amazing work. So thank you to all the volunteers present today, and are they all the panelists present today, and all those who have come before you. And to our amazing backstage crew who make this all possible by pushing buttons and switching things and handling audio and doing meetings in between the shows to keep everything organized. We truly appreciate this international crew of people that have come together to put this show on every day for you. We hope you get value out of it. Tulloch Traversal today, 44,000 miles. That is 71,000 kilometers, 347 million bananas for scale. We'll see you in after hours. Bye-bye.
Getting serious FOMO about just picturing this calm voiceover that I missed.
It's online, isn't Extra Hours archived there?
Yeah, it's for view.
I'm going to have to listen to that one.
I watched this last night. Hilarious. Nice little improv session.
It's only funny because nobody here was involved directly with it.
I think that if I had more time, we would sit down and script that and record it and put it up, because that would be
hilarious.
We'd have to do it today. I just don't think I have the time today to do it. It's worthless tomorrow. But it would be funny, or this week it would be funny. It would have been funny yesterday.
Use it as a short on YouTube. Put it up as a short.
It's like the people who do the lip
It's like
syncing.
3.5 minutes to be funny. All right.
It's like